Welcome to the Living Word Podcast. I am your host, Genevieve, and these episodes serve as a reminder to how essential your fullest expression is on this planet during one of the most transformative times in our history. Together, we are going to explore truth through vulnerable conversations about life's deeper meaning, exploring holistic wellness, mindset, spirituality, entrepreneurship, love, and everything in between. Let's dive in, shall we? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 13 of the Living Word Podcast. I feel like this has been going on forever, and at the same time, it feels like it only started yesterday. And so I thank all of you for being here. And I've had so many stories from all of you, just how much you resonate with these stories. And that's really what this is about, is connecting ourselves even closer to each other, to our own heart, to our Creator, through the conversations that people in my life are so giving to just allow us to have them on this podcast. And Jody, who you will be hearing from today, is a sister in God. She's a mother, an entrepreneur. And what draws me closer and closer to her is the impact that she's making on this planet by being a spokesperson for clean living. And the truth is, Jody, that I still don't know your full story. We've kind of kept it to the sidelines so that we could have it here. But one of the things that built an instant rapport was how much I am inspired by your conviction that there's an anointing on your life to take what happened for you and use it as leverage to be able to help more people. And you had a diagnosis that really changed the trajectory of your life. And instead of sinking into this state of victim, you rose above, and now you allow everything that you've learned and continue to learn to help more people live a cleaner life, and specifically educating people that are overcoming cancer. And for those of you who have been listening to these episodes, my father was a holistic doctor who was diagnosed with terminal cancer at 59 and passed away 4 months later. And what I know is that it takes a very, very big decision, a decision for us to choose us and our life, and to come into agreement with the words of our Creator, not the words of what is being spoken to our lives. And so, Jody, thank you for that. I would love for you to introduce yourself, and I am so excited to really learn more about you today.
Well, thank you so much, Gigi. And I just want to say I'm so honored to be here. From the moment I met you at an event in California, I just felt this energy radiating off of you. And I knew, I was like, wow, she's a gal that I want to get to know someday. And it happened to be, I think, a couple of years later that we actually ended up connecting and becoming fast friends. And I'm super grateful for that. And the more I've gotten to know you and your life mission and about your father and who you are, I just fall more in love with your heart every single time that we talk. So I'm just so incredibly honored to be here. So thank you so much. As you mentioned, yes, I'm Jody Younker. I always have been into a cleaner way of living, a healthier lifestyle, taking care of myself. But I think, a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And when someone looks at you and says, it's cancer, I think in that moment, my whole world, the axis just shifted, and it just kind of runs through your mind for days, and you think, of course, how did this happen to me? Well, where was I? Was I out to lunch? How did I not realize that this is what was going on all this time? And, I thank you for your kind words and saying, I didn't choose being the victim, but I do think it's very, very easy to think, I'm just going to crawl under a rock. I'm going to stop showing up every day. I'm going to stop helping people. And I'm just going to be sad. I would not be telling the truth if I didn't say those thoughts ran through my mind. But I just made a decision. I looked at my husband and I said, I have to show up more now than ever, right? I've been showing up for years, and I feel like I don't know what this is going to look like, and it's going to be really messy, and I'm really scared, but I want people to know that they're not alone, that this affects so many of us. Just look at, your father, myself, we can name multiple people that we know that are affected by disease. And I was told not just that I had cancer, but I also have 5 autoimmune disorders, whichever you want to call them. And it was just like, this is crazy. I think that I walked around with the autoimmune since an early teenager. I grew up in a chaotic fight or flight environment. And I think I always lived in survival mode and really didn't understand what it was like to not. So it just was looking back now, it really makes a lot of sense. But at the time, it was overwhelming.
Oh my goodness, I do know. And you said something that actually just hit me. You said, how did I not recognize that this was happening? So my question to you is, looking back now, were there sensations, symptoms, ways of being that were showing up that you just couldn't figure out, you couldn't understand? I'm hearing that there wasn't a lot of medical support before the diagnosis. So could you dive into a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So that, I think, is a huge reason why it's became part of my mission to create awareness, to be your own advocate. So when I look back from, I would say in 2014, okay, I had a virus that took away my hearing in my right ear and developed a fin fish allergy immediately onset. I think it was my own body saying, please help me. There's something wrong, right? Most people don't just lose their hearing, but the doctor's like, it's not uncommon. It happens. And then with the fish allergy, my body struggled with the iron and the things that related to a thyroid and the autoimmune disorders that I had at the time, but it was overlooked. And I was young and was like, okay, this just happened. I'll avoid fish. 2018, I had bloating so bad all the time, chronic. It was miserable. I felt like I was 3 months pregnant all the time. I go to the doctor, they say, oh, it's your gallbladder. We'll take it out. I let them. Then I still have issues. 2021, I had a miscarriage. At this point, I'm certain that I had the cancer and had no idea. Right. And I just thought, I call my dad and he's kind of old school. And he's like, well, you're getting older. I'm like, Dad, girls have babies in their 50s. Like, it's not it, Totally. And so then, moving forward, I just got to a point where I was like, I do more than 90% of people. I don't know what the up and down weight gain is. I don't know what this bloating is. I don't know what I can or cannot do. How do I fix this? And I actually followed a distance nutritionist that I just loved on IG. She had twins. I just loved who she was, how she showed up. And I reached out to her and she said, I don't want to scare you, but I have Hashimoto's and thyroid issues. I'm going to have someone come to your house and do some blood work and take your TPO antibodies. And depending on how they come back, I want you to have that ammo to take to your doctor. And sure enough, they came back high. I feel like she 10x'd me. I went into my PCP and I said, I have these high antibodies. I have thyroid cancer history in my family. I think something's wrong. And I think it's been wrong. And he ordered a ultrasound. And then the ultrasound, he called me. You never forget those calls. I was in the back of a car in another state and the sun shining down for like a movie. He calls me at almost 7:00 at night. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. And Wow. He said, there's a nodule. We need you to get it biopsied. I got it biopsied and it came back as papillary thyroid cancer. So I literally am so thankful because my TSH numbers and panels came back normal at that point, sitting with all of that.
Wow. I even just hearing you speak, you said like, this is why I'm so passionate about helping people be their own advocate. And I think one of the themes on this podcast through everyone's stories is that at one moment we've had to take a stand against what was being thrown to us and the agreements that we were making with the medical diagnoses or the lack of. And for you I'm looking at you right now, people that are listening the audio, like you are glowing. You have a captivating energy that can only be felt, not described. But to even think about how only just a few years ago, you were completely like trapped in this lack of energy and lack of luster, to say the very least. And so when the diagnosis did come, what was the next steps from them? Did they have next steps? Was it all hands on deck at that point? Because for anyone listening, I'm Canadian, you're American. It's a very different world through each country. And so I don't know how this works there because I witnessed my father, but it was probably very different.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first, and I think this is very important because I've seen other people struggle with disease and cancer and things in their lives. The first thing I did, and my husband thought, you're insane. I went back to work that following week and I was a leader and I was sitting at a large corporate meeting and they were discussing letting someone go that I thought was the brightest crayon in the box. And do you remember the Muppets? Are you old enough to know the Muppets?
Yes.
Yes. So you remember they'd be like, murr. That's all I could hear. And I looked at my boss and I said, I'm done. And he said, excuse me? Like he's the only one that knew I had cancer at the time. And I said, I'll bring my things on Monday. And I remember walking out of there. It was like a shopping plaza. So there was no light and the light was only in the front. And when I got out, the sun was just beaming down on me and I felt God's presence. And I felt like him say, I have you. Way to surrender. We're going to make it through this. And, I told my husband, he goes, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I don't care, but I'm not going to do a job that I don't like when I have cancer. That's just too much. I can't handle it. And I think that that's so important. Even our message at church today was about, do we live to the money, to the things of this world, or do we live to what God has promised to us? And I knew in that moment that I had to surrender. Psalm 23, I read every single day, and I still do, to surrender and lay down in the green pasture. And that I had to do for my own health, to take care of myself. I took a year off. And that really allowed me the space, because when I think about people, it breaks my heart. They have to hold down a full-time job. They have to worry about their health. I mean, some days it was all day long advocating for myself. Okay, which doctor do I believe? Who do I go to? What do I do next? I need to have a functional doctor. I interviewed 8 functional doctors across the United States. I tell people it's like dating. Like, oh, I'm not doing this again. This doesn't feel right. Right. And I decided through that I wanted a woman. I wanted to be able to look her in the eyes. So she had to be fairly close. I wanted her to have known what I am going through, what I felt, the Hashimoto's, hypothyroid, thyroid cancer. I wanted her to have had all of it and put herself into remission, because that's, in that point in time, that's what I needed. I needed that trust factor of someone who lived what I'm living through.
Totally. How did you know to do all this? Like, had you gone through this before with someone in your family? Or this was all brand new, and you really, like, when you say to surrender, you fully surrendered to what was showing up. And so how did you know what to do?
A lot of prayer, a lot of taking up space and allowing myself grace, and a lot of research. I mean, they say that if you listen to books every time you're in the car for 4 years, it's equivalent to a degree. Like, I literally did the research, did the homework, figured out, how did I get here? Was it linked to childhood trauma? Okay, yes, maybe. What do I do now? Who do I contact? Who do I reach out to? And I just prayed for the strength and the discernment, right, to know who I'm supposed to choose to trust. And I had a mentor through all of this, and it was another God thing. She had offered to mentor me, and I thought, not right now. I'm just coming out of some mentorships and whatnot. And I'll never forget the month after I was diagnosed, sitting on my couch, and it was almost like I couldn't hear anything audible, but it was just like I felt this nudge from God saying, you need to call her now. You're going to need her more than you know. And she helped me so much. I mean, she is a very godly woman, and we had, sessions, and that was so helpful. I think it's just carving out and cultivating the right people in your life that bring you life. Because I that was a season of my life where usually I give to everyone, and I needed to be the one being poured into as much as possible, because I was going through something I never faced before. And I knew outside of God and people that He had positioned in my life on purpose, no one was going to be able to take from me what I was going through.
I think it's such a big takeaway for everyone listening. Like, Jody, you are sparking just remembrance in me too about how it doesn't matter whether it's business, health, anything that we're doing. There's only a certain amount of strategy, philosophical strategy, that's going to bring us to where we want to go. And I'm just so grateful that you are sharing this authentically, because a lot of the times we think in a very linear way, what is next? And the truth is that we were given free will and choice, and we must take a step before more is delivered. And that's something I've learned the hard way over and over again. But what I'm hearing you say is that it was equal parts research and linear thinking and what do I need to know, and equal parts surrendering and waiting for that nudge, that whisper to come through. And I think that's where fear can really remove us from that state of being. And so in this journey that you were on, like, you just had great news the other day, by the way, that I would love for you to share. Yet I know that what you have been going through is a daily practice of mind, body, and spirit. You just talked about how you went into the emotional body, the mental body, which is so important. And one of the things that I think we're really let down by our medical systems about is we only look at the physical body. And so what were some of the first things you started to shift or change? And I would love when the time is right for you to share that news, because I think it brings everything full circle to now.
Absolutely. I think growing up, I'm the oldest child, the only daughter, the firstborn grandchild. I feel like my whole life, there was just this expectation, whether it was put on myself by others or the things I never wanted to be, that I just drove and did. And, just, it's okay. Just keep going, stuff it, go. And I think in ways that this was God's way of saying, you're going to be still and you're going to feel all of that. This is going to be a surrender of forgiveness, of the future, of your health, of, I just came out completely different. Like I look at my husband sometimes and I'm like, I'm not who I was before I was diagnosed. And I know that. And I know lots of parts of me are better. And there's probably some parts of me that were more fun that you might miss, but you just can't, it's something that happens, right? It's this shift. I'm just not the same, and I take time to me, my son, that year that I had off, imagine I have one child. I mean, he's pretty much a grown man now, he's 18, but he's still my baby, right? And when your only child looks at you through that situation and kind of comes home from school and he's kind of biting his lower lip a little bit and he's hee-hawing around, messing with the couch. And he says, Mom, I want to ask you something. And I'm like, well, yeah, I knew, my heart knew, and he basically wants to know if I'm going to live when they found out the cancer had metastasized and grew and spread. I said, yes, Dom. I don't know all the answers, but I definitely know that. I think when things like that happen to you, that time, that year that I had off to be with my husband, to be with my son, to find out what I needed in my life, to know the things I was no longer going to do or tolerate, that changed my life, right? And just taking up the space to realize my lymphatic system doesn't work like other people's. I need a rebounder or vibe plate, walks. I changed the way I exercise. I used to do HIIT workouts, through my functional doctor and learning. Now I do walks and Pilates, and it fills my soul so much more. I take intentional time every single morning, and I had done it before, but it's different now. Like I read the Bible, I journal, I have a prayer book. I feel like my grandma, like somebody says I need something, it's in the prayer book, right? I'm very intentionally spending that time to make sure that those things center me, right? Those things remind me that that's how I healed. That's what I need, and then I recently did go back to work full time, and I juggle a lot of other things in businesses too, right? But I don't not take that time out now. I make sure that I'm present. If I'm committed to you, I'm committed to you. No phone, I'm present. I'm fully there, right? And I think that those things kind of go by the wayside when we're really busy and life is happening, right? I try to be very intentional with my relationships. And last week I did find out that I am in remission, which is, I told my husband and son, it's the third greatest day of my life outside of having my son and marrying my husband. Like that is just the most freeing feeling, a year and a half of your life, not fully knowing at times what was going to take place, and then hearing and seeing those scans that show no signs of cancer is just a beautiful thing that I'm very grateful for.
I'm so honored to be able to share that with the world. And I just found out right before we recorded this, and it brings tears to my eyes because you did it. And I know it's not you. I know it's God through you and the people, but you did it. And you reminded me, actually, I took a year off also when I first came to Mexico. And that's one of the only reasons when you said, like, I took the year, I could feel this softening in my being happen, because I took a year off because similarly, I was always pouring into everyone. And to be honest, I didn't know how to stop that. I really didn't. I didn't know how to care for myself. And so I just made a commitment. I said, okay, this year is all about me. And I didn't know what I liked, what I wanted to do. I realized I didn't know myself. And so when I hear you say I took the year, success leaves clues. And maybe you're thinking, well, I can't afford to take a year off. And it's like, yes, that's coming into a mental agreement with what you're unable to do. And I believe, and you've experienced it, I've experienced it, that even when things don't make logical sense, when we do follow the nudge of what is required, everything we could possibly need shows up. And your journey through dis-ease, what I see in you is that you have been what I like to call prepared to be a new earth leader. And I believe that the world is shifting so much. There's a rise in Christianity that we've never seen take place at this mass before. There's so many people that are really knocking on the heart's door to open up. And in order to have this new earth, we need new leadership. And I believe that people like you are being used and refined to be able to walk the talk, because leadership used to be whatever I say I am, believe I am. And now it's what I do and who I be is the leader that I am. And so I'd love to know if that resonates with you, because you've stepped into a whole new level of leadership even since I first met you. And by the way, I'm going to put this picture in the show notes for people. You sent me a picture of diagnosis to now. holy moly transformation. So maybe share a little bit about that transformation, but like, what does it mean to you now to have that transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, I want to hit on something you said, because I think you've led such a beautiful life also. And in that year, I'm sure you experienced much of the same. There were times that I had no idea in ways like what was going to be next or how, but God always provided. Sometimes I feel like he's like, look, you little grasshopper, good job. Here you go. Thank you so much.
Totally.
Because I was unsure. And I just want to make that so clear. I was not sure. There was so much unsure, you know what I mean? But that he definitely does always and constantly provide. And now I forget what you asked me directly, because I want to make sure I said
that's fine.
Tell me
no,
again.
that's huge. I actually think let's stay there for a moment, because uncertainty is the whole point, right? Because what we've always done created what we don't require for our highest self. Like, think about that, right? Like, we clearly had to break down the subconscious mind in ways we've probably never even knew existed in order to find out, like, how am I speaking to myself? You talked about your lymphatic system. It's like, that's not a conscious thing. We don't wake up every morning and go, hello, heart, time to beat. Okay, lymphatic system, time to drain. Like, that doesn't happen. So it takes time to become present enough to think about those things. And my question to you was, the transformation, the picture you sent me, just like, wow, that we'll share with everyone. But I know the transformation means more to you than just your physical appearance, because you look smoking, wow, you look amazing. But what does the transformation really mean to you as a leader in this space of clean living?
Thank you. Yes. So last night I actually put that side by side together. I was working on some things, some future things last night on the couch, and I thought, gosh, I had that photo shoot, right after I was diagnosed. Let me find a full length picture and let me just grab one from the other day. And I showed my son and his girlfriend, and they were like, whoa. My husband was trying to be nice. He's like, he's like, don't even use your body, just your face. And so that's another thing, like, puffy face. I feel like I had inflammation in my face all of the time. And I thought, goodness gracious, what is this? What am I doing? I remember being pregnant with Dom and not even having that much inflammation. So to be able to give my body what it truly needs, I cut out gluten. I have very limited dairy. I've learned what I can and cannot have that, aggravates my system. I juice every day. I'm taking proper supplements. I do want to tell people this. It's myself included in the past. It's very difficult, like, as women, like, I'm going to take that because that person takes it and they are amazing, right? Like, to know what your body needs as far as supplements go, you have to have your blood work done. You have to know what's going on inside underneath the skin, right? What your body needs is only told truly by your blood work as far as supplements go. And I got those aligned and right. I'm obviously on thyroid medications because I have no thyroid. So to be able to love myself enough to say, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to figure this out. I think from that place and the way that you speak about it, Gigi, that takes me to a whole different level of, let me help you because I've been through it, right? When you look at that picture, I love the girl on the left, right? Like, you could see in the picture, I thought I liked me, right? Like, there's no lack of confidence in it. But when I look at the new picture, I love her so different because she's healed. And like, the way her body looks represents that, right? I'm not putting things in it that don't belong there. I'm not trying to be like somebody else and take this and take that and do this and do that. I'm in complete alignment with what I'm really supposed to be and accepting of everything I've been through. And it's 22 pounds less. I think over 30 inches, right? Like, in my face, like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I want that for everyone because we all deserve that, right? And it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It can be just little things day by day that you commit to say, I'm going to take the toxins out of this. I'm going to do my research and figure out what's in my daily life that's probably really hurting me.
That's so potent, because I agree with everything you said. These blanket statements of supplementation, it doesn't work. Could it work at the beginning? Sure. Because, when we're at a certain place and we need to evolve, like anything different that we do that's healthy is going to feel good. But over time, we become stagnant. And we both work with a lot of people that we have to be humble enough to recognize, like, I may not have everything that you require because it wasn't for me. And I think personalization is something that is so required. And that's another, when I say New Earth leadership, it's like, I may not be everything you require, but I know that I can help you with some things. And I see you. If you're not following Jody on Instagram, please go follow her, because she talked about going for daily walks. And one of the things I love is when you're on your walks, a lot of days you get inspired to share, and you share so many tips about the little things that we may not think about. The toxins of even products we're putting on our skin. That is something I will say honestly was the last thing that I really tweaked up. Like I did about 80% clean, but when it came to like my candles and my makeup and like the little things, I kind of just like ignored it. And since meeting you, I've brought even more intention into what I'm doing every day. And I think that's so powerful. And it's like, what was a couple of the first things you shifted? Because that 22 pounds and 30 plus inches, like that doesn't just happen from supplementation and food. It's impossible. And I believe inflammation is one of the biggest pandemics that we have in the world. People are so puffy and inflamed, and then they think it's weight that they need to lose. And that's something that just makes me so frustrated, only because I don't sometimes have the words to verbalize it. But inflammation and weight loss are very different realms of existence.
Very different. Very, very different. And I think you and I obviously share a lot of that love for cleaner living, and we've both done a lot of things. We're very educated in that sense, as far as like what we allow in our lives, the water, the things that we are, the people, like, because it is just that too. It's not, you're right. It's not just the food. It's not just the diet and the exercise you choose. It's everything. It's who you allow in your life. It's what you allow on your body. I tell people I started room by room. Right? Honestly, like right now I'm sitting just smart things. Instead of having a ring light, I'm using a happy light right now, because what does that do? It's a very gray day. I live in Ohio. Those beautiful walks I take and talk to people are turning ugly because it's dreary out and it's going to be winter. So I have this happy light. Below me at my desk where I'm at oftentimes is a red light. So it's just those simple choices, right? Things like that are better. I choose lotions that have minimal ingredients that are actually safe for my body. I choose, if I'm going to use a fragrance spray, it's not going to be something that's filled with toxic chemicals, right? If we go to my bathroom and you can open your shower and think, what can I read every product that's on whatever it is that I'm putting on my body? Do I understand what it is? Is it healthier things, or are there terrible chemicals in it, right? I'm a girl. I love skincare. I love makeup. So I love, good shampoo. So it's just all those things. I made sure, so for my bathroom end, that I'm putting things on my face and on my body that are safer, because we don't know what we don't know. And it can be our clothes, our bedding, our anything that we have. So I just kind of go room by room is what I tell people to do, and say, is this the best choice you can make for yourself, right? Is there something better, even if it's $3? Could you make that difference today? Or could you not make it overwhelming? Because I think what we oftentimes do too is we think, oh, if I had to do all that, it would stress me out so much, I'd be in a worse position. So just taking it as slow as you need to. But, the kitchen is another place that has so many things that we use to cook, which goes inside of us, right? Microplastics and all the things. So it's just really educating yourself on what matters the most to you first. I think it's different if you have young children at home versus older children. You just have to decide what's best for you and not compare yourself to someone else, and just think, I'm going to dedicate myself to this. What does it look like for me?
I never am going to tell you what to do, but I think that you should absolutely open up a consultation call that's called Room by Room. Like, that is brilliant. And that's one of the reasons we're reconnected. Yeah. I'm sure that so many people listening to this are like, I would love to have someone go room by room. That's one of the, we've connected on many levels, but one of the reasons I reached out to you is I saw how you were showing up, and I was like, first of all, if any of you know me, you know that I love fashion. And I love building my avatar every day. I just did an episode a few weeks ago with Jessica Badar, who we both know, and she talked about the frequency of fabrics. Okay. Like we're talking like you want to be an upgraded version of yourself. It's like room by room and inch by inch, baby, because it all matters. And I love what you said about not being overwhelmed by the price points. And what I have found is that a lot of the times the better choice is equal price. It's not even a lot more. Some things are, yet there's a longevity aspect that we really need to take into account. And when I saw you talking about clean living, I was like, I know that I'm going to fast track my own learning by going to people. I believe that every minute we spend and every dollar we spend is a vote. And I want to vote for people that are really good at what they do. And one of the things I learned is that you had a lot of knowledge on ingredients and I didn't have the same knowledge, and I'm so grateful. And you know, you guys have seen me posting some of my new favorite products that I got from Jody, and I'm going to link those in the bio so that you can reach out to her too, because I was overwhelmed and I didn't know where to start and I didn't want to read every ingredient. I wanted someone to tell me what to do. And I think that's what mentorship, coaching, and inspiration really is about. It's how can I get to where I'm wanting to go in the least amount of time? And you walk the talk. And so I trust you. I will do what you tell me to do because I know that it's all with an intention. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for, as a mom, like you do the same for your son. We've had many conversations and it's like you're building that level of awareness for even the younger generation, which they know so much. They know so much. Like it's unbelievable. But I think that room by room, if that's something that really just hit you like it did to me, definitely go over and book time with Jody because that is so amazing. And what I would love to know is, looking back at the woman that you were, I think it was 2018, you said the diagnosis, to who you are now, like what is a big piece of advice that you would give yourself so that it can also be transmuted to everyone listening?
That's a big one. I think the spirit of fear, it's huge. And I feel like in ways it held me back from really stepping into who I was really supposed to be. And as unfortunate as it might be, being diagnosed and going through what I went through, God really said, you got to let it go. Right? Like and looking back, like in doing the deep work into my childhood, he was always there. There was like this light in this dark space. And it took until the diagnosis to realize he's always made me safe, right? Like I have nothing else that can explain it. And I feel like once I was diagnosed, that spirit of fear, because ultimately I think if we're honest with ourselves, it's at the stem, the root of everything that holds us back. It looks different for all of us, but it's always there. And my word for 2024 is surrender. I just laid it all at his feet. I said, whatever comes of this, whoever stays, whoever goes, whatever I need to do, I'm at your feet. Right. And I think don't live there. Love yourself enough to think, who do I got to forgive? What do I have to let go of? Who do I have to get close to? Which, Gigi, I'm so thankful for you because anything I see of yours, any conversation we have, I just think, oh, that girl is light. I want to be closer to her. Right. And then when we had all the people we know in common, I'm like, there's, success leaves clues. And there's the proof that people who really want to organically serve and help change the little section of the world where they are, I think God always puts us in the vicinity of each other, right?
I feel the same about you. I'm so grateful. And every single thing you've shared on this episode resonates with me in a very deep way. And one of the things you said is releasing and letting go. And we both know that as we start to change inside of ourselves, things change outside of ourselves. And I used to be someone that always thought there was something wrong with me when people would go MIA or people would bash me or trash me. And every time I went through a big upgrade in my life and made changes, I would lose people. And it's still something that I'm working through. Like it's still hard when I recognize that a relationship is no longer what it was. But what I've learned also is that whatever isn't for us right now, it's because it's making space. And being alongside sisters like you and so many of the beautiful women that we both know, I just know that this is only the beginning.
Absolutely. And that is such a freeing feeling And I want that for so many, right? Because I think as we age as women too, we're introduced to so many things like, well, where'd that come from? What does this mean? How do I do this, right? And being surrounded by the right people is priceless. And success looks very different to me now than it did before I was diagnosed. Before I was diagnosed, I thought, I got to do this and I got to have this. And if I don't have this many this, then I'm not as good as da 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 da. And now I don't care.
Yes.
Best feeling ever.
Liberating.
Perfect. Yes. And I see you and like you are living out so many of my dreams, living at one of my favorite beaches and just doing life on your terms. And I don't want to spoil it, but all the beautiful things you have coming, that gives me hope and gives me light, right? The way you live your daily life is something, I tease my husband all the time, like, eventually I'm just going to be sitting near the beach and you're going to be at that brick and mortar. You're going to have to come see me.
Well, I hope it's on the same beach as us, because that would be amazing. I mean, that's the dream, right? We're building community and we get to, there are no boundaries to that. Like we get to choose. And I receive your words. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And it's a mirror back to you. And if this episode resonated with you listening, which I know there are many of you that it will, Jody, what's the best way for people to find you and reach out to you?
I would say IG, Jody Younker. And yeah, you can message me. I always, maybe not right away, but that is probably the best way to reach out to me. I show up there every day, as you stated, kind of sharing little nuggets of my life. So, and Gigi, I want to thank you so much. I also want you to know that I have this vision of, I've seen all the things you're trying to do, and it's going to be bigger than you can ever imagine.
Thank you.
You're welcome, friend.
Together we are so much stronger. And on that note, all the show notes will share how to get in touch with Jody. I know her and I, this is only the beginning. I'm already claiming it that we're going to do another episode that's all about clean swaps. And so we're going to expand this because she is the go-to person for clean living. And one of the biggest takeaways I hope you have from this episode is choose your mentorship wisely. Go with people that your heart is a heck yes, and that you know that they are walking their own talk, because that's the only way that we create lasting changes to first change ourselves. Jody, thank you for being a beacon of light for people in general, yet especially women, and for just breathing into us today that it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, friend, and right back at you. I adore you.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Living Word podcast today. My hope is that you have something new or a remembrance that you can apply in your life right now. Isn't that the whole point of us learning and growing? To take new understandings and alchemize them through our own human experience? Please like and leave a comment or review if you enjoyed this episode, and share it with people in your life who would benefit from hearing it also. Make sure you subscribe to the Living Word podcast on your favorite platform and be the first to know about upcoming episodes. Sending so much love and gratitude to be on this journey together. See you soon.